Hey everyone, Dan with Mac Rumors, and in this video we're going to talk about how to get the most out of your iPhone's camera when it comes to recording video. This video was shot entirely on my iPhone X, and there are a couple of different settings that you can tweak and some tips that you can try to get better video without having to spend any additional money. But unfortunately, the stock camera app doesn't really let you do a whole lot. Before you shoot any video at all though, it is important to adjust your resolution and frame rate. If you want to shoot in 4K, the maximum resolution that iPhone can record in, make sure you change that in these settings and also select which frame rate that you'd like to shoot it at. The most common is 30 frames per second, but you also have the more cinematic style of 24 frames per second and a buttery smooth 60 frames per second. I also highly recommend turning the grid on for better composition of your shots. It also makes using rule of thirds a heck of a lot easier. Now, when you're in the native camera app, you can't really adjust your camera settings like you would be able to on a DSLR. There are applications in the App Store that do allow you to adjust your settings and get a true DSLR-like Pro mode, but those apps do cost a little bit of money. Now, we will be taking a look at my favorite app a little bit later on in this video, but if you're trying to keep things free, a tip that I highly recommend would be adjusting your autofocus and auto exposure and locking them into place. So once you find a good exposure level and you're focused on the subject that you'd like to film, hold down on that spot until you see the AE/AF lock. From here, you can actually adjust the exposure of your shot a little bit, and those settings will lock until you tap on the screen again. This will prevent your iPhone from constantly changing exposure or trying to focus on something different in the shot while, say, panning from left to right like you see here. Keeping your shot steady is always a good idea, and if you don't have access to a tripod or a gimbal, you can simply lean your elbows on a table or a flat surface that you might have in front of you to get more of a steady grip on the iPhone. This should go without saying, but you should pretty much always shoot in landscape, and if you really want to spice up your story, take advantage of the iPhone's slow motion and time-lapse features. The iPhone X can shoot in 1080p resolution at up to 240 frames per second, which will give you some incredibly awesome slow motion footage and can even make boring shots a little bit more interesting when they're in slow motion. On the flip side, a time-lapse is another great storytelling tool that is built right into your iPhone's camera app and can definitely help make your scenes more interesting. Now, if you really want to kick things up a notch, there are a couple of different tools that you can use that do cost a little bit of money, but not everything featured in this video will break the bank. If you want to use a tripod to help balance your iPhone while shooting a time-lapse or really any shot or have some really cool looking pans, you can pick up this really awesome mini Manfrotto tripod on Amazon for around $20. Or if you need a larger tripod, Amazon sells a plethora of options that won't break the bank for some easy, steady shots. Of course, to attach the iPhone to a tripod, you will need this little phone adapter that works perfectly and isn't expensive at all. Finally, in terms of one of the better tools out there for your iPhone that can really make your videos a whole lot better, there are lots of smartphone gimbals like this one here, which is the DJI Osmo Mobile 2. The DJI Osmo Mobile 2 is a fantastic option for any smartphone that can give you super smooth and buttery shots. The Osmo Mobile can pan left to right, tilt up or down with the help of the larger button on the gimbal. And you can even zoom in and out and start recording by pressing the hardware buttons on the gimbal rather than messing up the stabilization and trying to touch the screen on your iPhone. The bottom of the gimbal can also be mounted to something like that mini tripod that I mentioned earlier and can be a perfect combination for panning time lapses. Hardware tools are definitely important, but as I mentioned earlier, it's important that the exposure, focus, white balance can be adjusted to help make your shot look the way you want. And one of the biggest things when shooting video is lighting. Unfortunately, if you're indoors and you don't have access to any lighting options, there isn't much you can really do aside from maybe purchasing some photography lights. But if you have access to natural light from a window or are shooting outside, those lighting conditions can definitely help you have a better look. Filmic Pro is an app on the App Store that is probably the best at helping you record videos with the best results possible. This is because of what I mentioned earlier, which is the ability to adjust your exposure, have access to manual focus, change the color temperature of your shot, etc. You can also record video at the maximum quality possible, which your iPhone settings do not really allow for you to adjust. For example, by selecting resolution and changing the setting from Filmic Quality to Filmic Extreme, you're changing the camera's bitrate from 50 megabytes to 100 megabytes, giving you a much larger file, but also a much higher quality image. The app has tons of different settings to mess around with and can truly give you a DSLR feel, all with your iPhone's camera. So these are just some of the ways that you can help improve your videos while shooting on an iPhone. Let us know in the comment section down below if you have any other suggestions on how to shoot better videos using your phone. This has been Dan with Mac Rumors. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.